On November 1st, Xi Jinping suddenly canceled his appearance at the APEC Business Leaders Summit and instead sent a written statement or a video statement, pre-recorded statement. It said that he and the entire Chinese delegation returned to Beijing earlier than planned. So what happened? Well, a large-scale protest had broken out in Hainan province, and Xi Jinping was reportedly furious. He dismissed several state enterprise officials and ordered strict control over online discussions and media coverage. So what exactly happened in Hainan? The unrest began on October 31st, on Halloween, when more than 1,000 villagers in Qiongzhong County took to the streets to protest against a major state-owned enterprise, Haijiao Group. Now, the protests quickly spread across the island and drawing young people from nearby towns and cities who drove in to support the villagers. And the trigger was simple, but explosive. Before dawn that day, workers from this SOE Haijiao Group entered the village and cut down over 1,000 betel nut trees, claiming the villagers had illegally occupied company land. Those trees take 5 years to bear fruit, and the ones destroyed had just reached their very first harvest. So for local farmers, the loss was devastating. And this is how they responded. So the villagers fought back, saying the land had always belonged to them. Their Li ancestors had lived there for over 3,000 years, long before the SOE was even founded in 2005. They asked, how can a 20-year-old company claim their ancestral land? And they even showed official land certificates proving the land was theirs. And the villagers accused the local officials of colluding with the SOE, and the standoff quickly turned into a riot. And some even called for a revolution. Yes, that very word that started the communist regime. The SOE in question is Haijiao Group, officially known as Hainan Natural Rubber Industry Group, which is China's largest natural rubber producer and listed on the Shanghai Stock Exchange since 2011. So after protests escalated and after Xi got word, the government stepped in, local government. Following negotiations, villagers received 588,000 yuan in compensation and 100,000 yuan for replanting the trees. So it was a small win, but a symbolic one, a victory for ordinary citizens against the state. So the Chinese sentiments or the Chinese netizens said, if we don't fight for our rights, government officials will never treat us as human. That's how people summed up this protest. Now, as China's economy continues to falter, the financial pressure on local government is getting worse, and ordinary citizens are feeling it. Clashes between villagers and officials are growing more frequent. Many state-owned enterprises or SOEs are colluding with local governments, siphoning off public land, money, and resources. Let's look at another case to understand how the system really works now. So I'll give you one case that perfectly illustrates the kind of crooked short-term games local governments are playing to get funding. It's a story that sounds almost unreal. It's China's latest gold rush. And this is what I call it, how local governments turn dirt into debt. Basically, two small reservoirs in the country's far northeast, one of the poorest regions in China, have suddenly become billion yuan assets, at least on paper. And according to the Chinese media outlet Finance Headlines on October the 29th, two reservoirs in Yi'an County, Qiqihar City, and Heilongjiang sold 20-year disposal rights to their 11 million cubic meters of silt for a staggering 839 million yuan, which is about 116 million US dollars. Now, for years, local water authorities saw this silt as a burden, right? Dredging it cost millions. Yet someone just paid over 800 million yuan or over $100 million for the right to clean up mud. So who would buy that? Well, the buyer turned out to be a newly established state-owned company called Qiqihar Zeyuan Environmental Protection Industry, company. It's a 100% government-owned company with registered capital of 270 million yuan. Now, this company was founded on October 10th, just 2 weeks before the auction. So this isn't an isolated case. 2 months earlier, another reservoir, it's called Dongfanghong Reservoir in Tieli City, sold 1.45 million cubic meters of silt for more than 60 million yuan. That one is less, much less. 60 million yuan is about $8 million US dollars. Now, in that earlier case, the sludge was priced at 42 yuan per cubic meter. But in Qiqihar, the price nearly doubled, 76 yuan per cubic meter in just 2 months. Now, officials claim the silt was rich in nutrients like nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, making it allegedly the ideal material for organic fertilizer. But analysts quickly did the math. Even if turned entirely into fertilizer, assuming the quality is good, annual output will be worth about 100 million yuan. But with 839 million yuan spent upfront, plus construction, labor, and operating costs, as the company claimed that they're going to build factories to turn this into fertilizer. Somebody did the math. They said it would take 80 years to break even, for this project to break even. And the disposal license only lasts 20 years. So clearly the profit isn't in the mud. Now the real game is borrowing against the mud. So a clue came from that earlier Dongfanghong Reservoir project. After that buyer paid 60 million yuan for the silt there, the buyer used its 5-year income rights as collateral and obtained a 45 million yuan green loan from the Agricultural Development Bank of China. In short, the mud was just the excuse. The real goal was financing. And analysts now believe the same thing would happen in Qiqihar. That company, which paid 839 million yuan for silt, will immediately borrow 600 million yuan, which is about 83 million US dollars, using the mud as collateral. It's kind of a modern Chinese alchemy, turning dirt into debt, mud into money. But the real asset isn't the mud, it's the loan. One Chinese commentator put it simply. He said, 2 nondescript reservoirs in Heilongjiang were suddenly turned into gold mines by a single contract. A state firm founded just weeks earlier became the star. It's a financial illusion born out of fiscal desperation. We all know that for decades, land sales fueled China's local government finances. Local officials borrowed against land, sold it to developers, and used the proceeds to fund construction and boost local GDP. But now that the property market has collapsed, that engine is dead. So local governments are desperately looking for new collateral, using a new policy called the 3 assets reform. Provinces are told to treat all state-owned resources as financial instruments. So what do? Well, they turn every resource into an asset, and then turn every asset into a security, then turn every fund into leveraged capital. So in simpler terms, they monetize everything. If you can use the resource, the mud, then use it. If you can, sell it. If you can't sell it, rent it. If you can't rent it, use it as collateral and borrow money against it. Now, local governments are labeling mud, garbage, river water rights, and even carbon in the air as assets, not to grow the economy, but to keep the credit lines open. There's no real cash flow, no new productivity, just financial packaging and creative accounting. And so one analyst said, the mud never moves, only the money does. In this model, officials meet their targets, banks hit their loan quotas, and everything looks fine on paper. But taxpayers, Chinese taxpayers, quietly become collateral for the future debt or for tomorrow's debt. That's the gist of it. Now, these examples show the growing desperation inside China's local government financing system. But while governments are broke, they're still spending on strange, costly projects. And some of them are far more troubling. Let's move to one that recently alarmed the public. In several provinces, local authorities have launched mass DNA and blood sampling campaigns targeting male residents. On October 23rd, a man from Pingwu County, Sichuan, reported online that every male in his village was required to give a blood sample. So he questioned the legality, noting that DNA had already been collected from them 3 years earlier. And then 5 days later, local police confirmed it, that all male citizens were being sampled to, quote, improve the national DNA database for crime prevention and public safety. But this caused an alarm. And so on October 31st, this professor, Lao Dongyan from Tsinghua University, publicly questioned the move. And this is an outspoken professor from Beijing. So she asked, where is the legal basis for collecting DNA from all men? The criminal procedure law applies to suspects and defendants. Are we treating every male citizen now as a criminal? That's her questions. A similar campaign had already taken place in Inner Mongolia starting September 5th. Authorities there said it was to help identify missing persons, but many residents were uneasy. I mean, especially as disappearances have become more common and rumors of organ harvesting persist. Now, here's what's troubling to people. DNA testing is expensive. Millions, sometimes tens of millions of yuan per region. So people are asking, why are cash-strapped local governments spending so much money on this when they're short of money, when we're not being paid, right? And so some people suggest it may be part of a central government effort to expand organ matching databases for the political elites or even the global elites, because these people do go to China for organ transplants. So people point out that with China's population plunging over the past 5 years, the usual pool of organ sources has shrunk. So the regime may be expanding the search through mass DNA collection.